Hi everyone, this is the second part of the Para 3D Edit Poly tutorial, and in this video I'm going to talk about the sub-object index parameter of Para Edit Poly, and we'll see what does it mean and how we can use it. And if you happen to watch the previous part of the video, you probably know that we use the Para 3D Edit Poly to extrude the faces of an editable poly object by a random controller. And in this video I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of random controller we're going to use a magnet controller to change the amount of the extrusion for each face. So let's start with creating a magnet controller. Here's my magnet. I'll just connect that with the amount channel of Para Edit Poly, and we'll create a magnet point. Helpers. This is the attractor point, and let's say pick the target here. Alright, so now if I try to update this graph, it will generate an error, and it would say that it cannot find the a position in Edit Poly. Alright, the reason for this is that magnet controller by default look for the position of the objects, and it will consider that position to basically evaluate the magnetic field, and then it will return the certain amount based on the distance from the magnet point to the position to the object. And since Para Edit Poly does not provide such a position, because when you try to update the Para Edit Poly, it will actually delete the whole editable poly object and it will try to create new ones. So when the controller is being updated, there's no object to actually measure the distance from. So for that we need to override the position by another controller, which can find the center point of the faces which we are going to extrude. So if you look at my my Edit Poly object in plan, the idea is to find the center point of each face in the editable poly object. In order to find a center point of a poly object, you can use a mesh controller. So let us put a mesh controller on the canvas and see how we can extract such information. A mesh controller requires an input, an edit poly or edit mesh object. In this case, we are working with editable poly object, so make sure you select the edit poly option in the geometry settings. The next thing you would need to do is to pass the original Edit Poly object, which is here in my Para container, to the controller. So, okay, you can do that by just picking the object from the scene, or you can link the Para container to the mesh controller directly. So let me just use that link controller. I can use a Para link controller to retrieve the geometry, the editable poly from the Para node, and then connect it to the mesh controller. You just look for the reference object in the channels and then connect the Para link to the reference object. The Para link automatically will the Para link is going to take the object from Para node and then pass it to the mesh controller. So let's go back here and see how we can find the face center. So first thing I want to do is to make sure I'm looking, because I'm looking for a position, so it has to be a vector output, so I'll set that to the vector. And then since I'm looking for a face center, I have to search in the faces, so I choose face here. And then in the output section we choose center point of face, which is exactly what we need. So let's go and connect that to our magnet controller. So here You can see the position override. This is where you need to connect the mesh controller. So I'm just renaming this mesh controller to face center. And I'll connect that to my magnet controller. So here goes to the position override. So I have now the face center instead of the object. So my magnet controller now consider the face center. But the question is, which face center is being considered? Because now in my mesh controller, the controller looks into the first dimension of the array, and my array is actually is a single it's a single object because it has only one member. So what does it really mean? It's actually always return the center point of the first face. So how can I basically find the face that is being extruded, so I can pass that information to my magnet controller, so that will be used as a position. Actually, I need to find which face of the edit poly is being extruded. So let's go back to our edit poly, and this is where actually the sub-object index becomes important. Whenever you update an edit poly, when it starts running by independent operation, as we discussed in our previous video, it will take each face individually, and then it will do the operation which you are setting here, and I will go to the next sub-object, which in our case is the face. Every time that it does this operation, it will record the index of that face or of that sub-object in here in this channel, and you can retrieve the information by assigning a custom parameter to this channel. The only controller that you can use in this channel is a custom parameter. So let's put a custom parameter here. Once I create and assign a custom parameter to index channel, it will show as a loop parameter. This is basically a reference parameter, which means it basically records the index, so you can use in other controllers to identify which sub-object is being selected. So here I call this now face index because we're working on the faces, and then I can come over here and then put that into my mesh controller. Instead of the D1, we can set the searching method to the custom, and then we can provide an input index. So now when the edit poly runs, it will record the index of the face which is being extruded before it actually called the controller. Then that face index will be used in our mesh controller to find the face center, and the face center will be used in the magnet instead of the object position because we're overriding that value. So I think everything set is now. Just let's have a look on our magnet setting. I'll just go with the 10 and 1 as an end. So, and then we move the magnet somewhere here next to the object. Let's see when we update. Alright, so now everything is set, so I can go to my scene and I can move the magnet point and I can update the geometry, and it updates. So this was a quick tutorial on how to use the sub-object index. Yeah, I hope you learned something today. In the next video, I'll try to cover the filter options. Thanks for watching.